I never thought I'd be the kind of guy to catch his wife cheating before she even knew I was onto her, but here I am. It started with small things, hidden texts, late nights with her phone tucked under her pillow, a weird scent that didn't belong to her perfume when she came home. You know the feeling, the gut twist that gnaws away at your insides, telling you something's wrong but not yet knowing what. It was a Friday evening when I decided to do some digging. She'd been acting distant lately, distracted like her mind was elsewhere. Sometimes I'd catch her staring out the window with that faraway look. I asked her about it and she brushed it off, saying work was stressing her out. But I saw the way her eyes flicked away when I pressed her. That wasn't normal. I took her phone that night while she was in the shower. My palms were sweaty, my stomach knotted tight. I knew I shouldn't do it, but I needed to know. My fingers trembled as I unlocked her device. She never had a password, but she always kept that little lock screen pattern. I had to crack it. I'd watched her do it 100 times. It was simple. I paused a moment, then drew in a breath and pressed my thumb against the screen. Within seconds, I was inside her messages. I scrolled past the usual junk, work emails, memes, her friends' gossip, until I hit a string of texts that made my stomach drop. There, in black and white, was evidence enough. A back and forth with someone I didn't recognize. Flirty messages, plans to meet up, even a mention of her wanting to see him tonight. My chest constricted so tight I thought I'd suffocate. I closed her phone faster than I opened it, hands clammy, heart pounding like a drum. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the screen of her phone still glowing in my hand. My mind raced. Did she know I'd seen this? Or was she just waiting for the right moment to tell me herself? Part of me wanted to storm into the living room and confront her right then. But I knew better. That wasn't how I wanted to do this. Not yet. I needed a plan, something sharp, precise, and cold. The next morning, I woke up feeling like I'd swallowed a stone. Her eyes were bright when she saw me, but I saw the flicker of guilt behind her smiles. I kept my expression neutral, but inside, a storm was brewing. I knew what I had to do. The pieces were in front of me now, proof enough. Her betrayal wasn't just a mistake. It was a betrayal I couldn't ignore. While she was out running errands later that day, I started planning. I rummaged through her things, her purse, her closet, looking for evidence I could use without her suspecting. I found her journal, and sure enough, there were notes about meeting her friend at a nearby hotel. That was enough. I slipped the journal into my pocket, feeling the weight of it against my skin. It was the key to what I was going to do. That night, I sat alone in the dim light of our living room, the journal in my hand, my jaw clenched. My mind replayed every stolen moment, every whisper of betrayal. I thought about her lying there, sleeping peacefully beside me, completely unaware that I had the proof I needed. A part of me wanted to wake her and tear into her, but I knew that wouldn't solve anything. I had to be smarter, calculated. I decided to let her go another day. I needed to set the trap carefully. I ordered a discreet voice recorder online, something small and undetectable. The plan was to catch her in the act, to have irrefutable evidence. That way, I wouldn't just be blind with rage, I'd be armed with the truth. As I watched her move through our apartment, I felt a strange mix of betrayal and determination. She thought she was smooth, she thought she'd get away with it, but I was done playing nice. I'd been patient, quiet, but now it was time to act. I had everything I needed, the evidence, the plan, the resolve. And when the moment came, I'd make sure she paid for what she'd done, no matter how much it hurt. But I also knew this wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about finally facing what I'd ignored for too long. When she walked through that door tomorrow, I would be ready, and she wouldn't see it coming. The next day felt like walking a tightrope. Every second I waited, my nerves stretched thinner. I kept glancing at the clock, watching her come through the door, pretending I was just another guy coming home from work. But inside, I was already planning my next move, rehearsing how I'd confront her, how I'd keep my cool while inside I was ready to explode. She finally arrived around 6, her bag swinging from her arm. She looked normal, too normal, like nothing had happened. But I noticed her eyes flicker just a little too quickly when she saw me, like she was trying to hide something. Or maybe she wasn't used to being caught off guard. Either way, I kept my face calm and welcomed her with a casual nod. "Hey, honey," she said, her smile a little too bright, her voice a shade too cheerful. I nodded back, feeling the adrenaline spike in my veins. I kept my tone even. "Long day, huh?" She shrugged, setting her bags down on the table. "Yeah, you know how it is. Work, been crazy. Sorry I didn't call earlier." She moved to the kitchen, humming softly, trying to act normal. That's what made my stomach turn. The nonchalance, the way she was trying to act like everything was fine. Like she hadn't just betrayed me 100 times over. As she fished around for a glass, I pulled out the small voice recorder I'd ordered. It was tiny, almost invisible, and I slipped it into the corner of the room, close enough to catch everything. My fingers trembled slightly. This was happening. I was finally going to get proof that I could use. She sat at the table, sipping her water, and I decided to push her a little just to see how she'd react. "So, how was your day?" I asked, voice deliberately casual. She hesitated, then smiled again. "Busy but good, just tired, that's all." Her eyes darted to her phone, and I caught the flicker of guilt there. I knew she was hiding something, and I wanted her to slip up. "Anything interesting happen?" I probed, leaning forward slightly. She scoffed softly, a little too quick. "Nah, nothing much, just the usual grind." She looked away, her hand trembling slightly as she set her glass down. I saw her glance at her phone again, probably thinking I didn't notice, but I did. That flicker of nervousness told me I was right. Then she said something I was expecting. "I think I'm just tired. Maybe I should lie down for a bit." Her voice sounded almost defensive, like she was trying to end the conversation quickly. I didn't push her further yet. Instead, I kept my eyes on her, waiting for the moment she'd slip up again. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the journal I'd taken from her earlier. I kept it hidden in my hand. I thought about whether I should show her, throw the evidence in her face right now, but that wouldn't serve my purpose. I needed her to make a mistake to give herself away. It was coming, I could feel it. Suddenly her phone buzzed loudly on the table. She glanced at the screen and her face went pale. I saw her grip tighten around the phone. For a second she looked like she was debating whether to answer or not. I knew that message was from the guy she'd been texting, the one I'd seen last night. She hesitated, then swiped to answer. Her voice was quiet, but I caught every word. "Hey, yeah, I'm home now. Yeah, I was just about to lie down. No, nothing's wrong, just tired." She paused, listening to whatever the other person was saying. My stomach twisted painfully. I kept recording. This was gold. I could hear the slight tremor in her voice, the way she tried to hide her guilt. When she finally hung up, she looked around nervously, like she was expecting me to say something. I decided to test her. "Who was that?" I asked, voice flat. She hesitated again, then forced a smile. "Just a friend from work, nothing important." Her words sounded hollow even to her. I leaned back, feeling a mixture of anger and satisfaction. I knew I'd caught her. She made her move, and I'd be ready. My mind was racing. I now had the evidence, texts, the journal, her nervousness on the phone, and I knew what I had to do next. I had everything I needed to confront her head-on, but I wasn't in a hurry. Not yet. I wanted her to think she was still in control, that she could get away with it. That's when I'd strike. The sound of her footsteps on the floor drew my attention. She looked at me, her face carefully blank. "What are you doing?" she asked, trying to sound casual. "Oh, just making some calls," I said, my voice even. "It's amazing how much you can find out when you really look." I smiled coldly, feeling the weight of what was coming, and deep down I knew this was only the beginning. I sat there for a moment, watching her eyes flicker with anxiety. It was a good sign. She was starting to realize I wasn't just some fool to be played. My mind spun with the plan, each piece falling into place. I knew I had to keep her on edge, make her think I was just gathering information, not already 5 steps ahead. "Who was that on your phone?" I asked again, voice calm but with a hardness she couldn't ignore. She hesitated longer now, biting her lip. "Just a friend, from work. Nothing to make a fuss over." Her words sounded rehearsed, like she was trying to lie convincingly. But her hands betrayed her, clenching tightly around her glass, trembling just enough to give her away. I leaned forward, steepling my fingers. "Really? Because I heard something different, and I've been going through your things. The journal you kept about meeting someone at the hotel. That's a pretty clear sign you're hiding something." Her face went white and her breath hitched. "You found that?" she whispered, voice cracking. "Yeah, I did. And I also caught some messages on your phone, not to mention the voice recording I set up earlier. I pulled my phone out and played back the snippet where she was clearly nervous, trying to hide her guilt. She froze, eyes darting around the room like she was searching for an escape route. "Look, I didn't mean for it to get this far," she finally said, voice trembling. "I didn't think you'd find out like this." "You didn't think?" I repeated, voice low and steady. "That's the problem. You thought you could do whatever you wanted, hide it from me, and I'd never know. Well, I do now. And let me tell you, I'm not the kind of guy who just lets this slide." She swallowed hard, her hands visibly trembling now. "Please, I was just—" "Save it," I cut her off. "You're not going to win this conversation. I've got everything I need." Her eyes filled with tears, but I didn't feel any pity, not anymore. I felt the cold rush of betrayal, and it was only getting stronger. My mind was already working on the next step, how to shut her down completely. "I want you to pack your bag," I said firmly. "You're leaving tonight, and I want the keys to your car. You're not coming back here until I say so." Her lips quivered, and she looked like she might argue, maybe even beg. But she knew deep down that I had the upper hand now. The evidence was irrefutable. She couldn't deny it anymore. "I'll get my stuff," she whispered, voice barely audible. "Good," I said. "And don't try to contact him, because if I find out you're still lying or hiding things, I'll make sure everyone knows exactly what you did. You're not just cheating on me, you're destroying everything we built." She nodded slowly, tears streaming down her face. She reached into her purse and pulled out her keys, setting them on the table. Her hands shook as she looked at me, defeated. I watched her gather her things, each movement heavy with remorse or resignation. I wasn't sure which anymore. I didn't care. All that mattered was that I'd finally taken control. She was leaving and this game was over, or so I thought. As she turned to walk out the door, I couldn't help but feel a strange mixture of relief and anger. I had the evidence, the plan was set, and her days of deception were numbered. But I also knew, deep in my gut, that this wasn't just about ending the affair. It was about finally facing the truth I'd ignored for too long. There's a strange silence as she stepped into the hallway. She looked back at me, her face streaked with tears, her voice trembling. "You'll regret this," she said softly. I watched her leave, feeling the cold weight of what I'd just done settle in my chest. Regret, maybe, but I knew one thing: I'd taken back control. And no matter how much it hurt, I'd make sure she knew I was serious about the consequences. The door clicked shut behind her. I stood there for a moment, then reached for my phone to delete the recordings and clear the evidence I'd gathered. It was time to finalize my revenge plan. I'd let her for now, but I wasn't done yet. Not even close. Because revenge, I realized, wasn't just about punishing her. It was about reclaiming what was mine: my respect, my dignity, my life. And I'd make damn sure she paid for every lie. The house was eerily quiet after she left. The kind of silence that presses against your ears, making every little sound, my breathing, the ticking of the clock, seem unnaturally loud. I stood in the middle of the living room, staring at the empty space where she'd just been. My mind was racing, adrenaline still coursing through my veins, but beneath that, a cold, calculated part of me was already planning the next move. I knew I couldn't let her walk away with everything. She thought she'd escaped, that her betrayal was behind her, but I was done being naive. I'd spent the last hour going over everything, the evidence I'd collected, the moments I'd seen her slip up, and I realized I needed to turn this into something she would regret for a long, long time. I sat down at my desk, opened my laptop, and began outlining my revenge. It wasn't just about exposing her. I wanted her to feel the sting, to understand what it was like to be betrayed and humiliated. But I had to do it delicately, without overplaying my hand. Something that would make her squirm but wouldn't blow up in my face. First, I logged into her social media accounts. No, I didn't hack, I just knew her passwords. I'd seen her use the same one for years. I took screenshots of her recent activity, the messages, the photos she'd posted, the comments. I wanted to make sure I remembered every detail. Then I started planning how to make her regret her choices. I knew she'd try to contact the man she'd been cheating with, so I needed to cut that off. I created a fake account, something believable, using her favorite hobby as a theme. A profile that would attract the same type of men she'd been chatting with. I sent a few messages, pretending to be someone interested in her, just to throw her off. If she reached out, I'd be ready to catch her again, this time with her own words. But I wasn't just after petty revenge. I wanted her to feel the loss of trust, the humiliation of being caught. So I set up a plan to release some of her secrets carefully, one at a time. I wanted her to realize that I had access to everything, her texts, her secrets, her lies, and that I was just waiting for the right moment to shatter her. I also scheduled a few anonymous emails to her friends, coworkers, letting them know about her affair without revealing my identity. That way, her reputation would start to bleed out, slowly but surely. I also bought a small gift. Nothing expensive, just a little reminder of what she threw away, something personal like a piece of jewelry she loved, but I'd replaced the clasp with a fake or swapped it for something similar. I planned to leave it at her work, or maybe even send it anonymously. Something subtle but enough to gnaw at her conscience. While I worked, I kept remembering the look on her face as she packed her bags, her tear-streaked cheeks, her trembling hands. That image fueled my fury, but I reminded myself that this wasn't just about revenge. It was about teaching her a lesson she wouldn't forget, about making her realize she couldn't cheat and get away with it. I also reached out to a trusted friend, someone I knew wouldn't betray me, and explained the situation. I asked if they could help me with some surveillance, maybe keep an eye on her while she was gone, just in case she tried something stupid. I didn't trust her to stay silent, and part of me didn't want her to slip out of my reach. Then I sat back and stared at the screen, feeling a strange mix of satisfaction and dread. I'd finally taken control, but I knew this was just the beginning. The fallout was coming, and I had to be ready for her reaction. Because once I hit send on the first reveal, there was no turning back. I took a deep breath, feeling my chest tighten, and stared at the little gift in my hand. It was a symbol of what she'd lost, something I could give her now, or maybe keep as a reminder of how far I'd gone. Either way, I knew the next step was crucial. I'd keep everything in motion, silent and deadly, until she realized she'd been caught in a web she couldn't escape. This was about more than just revenge. It was about reclaiming my dignity after being blindsided, and I was just getting started. The days that followed felt like walking on a tightrope stretched thin. Every time I saw her car pull out or heard her footsteps in the hall, my pulse quickened. I kept my eyes sharp, waiting for her to slip, waiting for her to make a mistake that I could exploit. I stayed quiet, letting her think she'd won, but inside I was planning how to deliver the final blow. I kept the fake profile active, sending messages from it at odd hours, baiting her into contact. Sure enough, she took the bait faster than I expected. One evening, a message popped up in her inbox, an invitation to meet someone interested at a nearby bar. Her reply was quick, enthusiastic almost, a clear sign she'd been longing for this moment. I kept a stock of her responses, recording every word. I noticed her getting more nervous as the days passed. She was packing more, avoiding certain rooms, and her phone was never out of her reach. The fake account had her hooked, and I could tell she was getting paranoid. Good. That's exactly what I wanted. It was only a matter of time before she slipped up again. One night she left her phone unlocked on the table while she went to the bathroom. I felt that familiar rush of adrenaline. I snatched it up, unlocking it with her password, something I had memorized from her notes. I quickly uploaded a screenshot of her latest message to the fake account, then deleted the original so she wouldn't suspect I'd been inside her device. Her reaction was priceless. She came back, saw her phone, and froze. Her eyes darted over the screen, panic spreading across her face like wildfire. She tried to act normal, grabbing her phone and slipping away into the bedroom. I knew I had what I needed. Her secret was no longer safe. The next morning, I set my plan in motion. I took the gift I'd prepared, a delicate necklace she loved, and carefully swapped it with a counterfeit I bought online. Same shape, same weight, but cheap material. I left it in her purse, nestled among her other things. I knew she'd find it eventually, and when she did, the guilt would eat her alive. I also drafted the email I'd send to her boss, anonymous, professional, but filled with enough insinuation to cause doubt. It claimed she'd been engaged in inappropriate conduct based on things I'd fabricated from her own messages. I knew that if it got out, her reputation would be in ruins. That was part of the plan. She'd be reeling from the loss of her job, her integrity shattered. While she was out running errands again, I slipped the necklace into her purse, then headed to her office building. I waited outside for her to arrive, then slipped the email into her inbox, anonymously. Watching her reaction through a side window, I saw her face go pale when she read the message. Her eyes widened and her hand trembled as she clutched her purse. That moment was pure satisfaction. I'd finally broken her facade, made her feel the consequences of her betrayal. She was unraveling and I was the one pulling the strings. The biggest piece was still ahead, confronting her with all the evidence and watching her crumble. But I knew I had to wait, to let her stew, to see how far she'd fall. Until then, I kept my composure, calm and cold, ready to strike when the time was right. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about reclaiming what I'd lost, one way or another. I went back home, feeling a strange mixture of relief and anticipation. The pieces were in place, the trap was set. All that remained was to watch her reaction when she finally realized she'd been exposed. And I knew deep down I'd never feel truly done until she paid every last price. That night I sat in the dark living room, the faint glow of my laptop illuminating my face. Every nerve was on edge, waiting for her inevitable reaction. The fake email I'd sent to her boss had done its job. By morning her phone lines would be buzzing, her phone ringing off the hook. Rumors would start spreading. The damage would be done. Now I just needed to see her crack. It didn't take long. Around midday her phone rang. She answered it, her voice trembling, and I could barely hear her side of the conversation from where I sat. Her face went from initial shock to outright panic. She whispered into the receiver, her words hurried, desperate. I watched her pace back and forth, clutching her stomach as if she might throw up. When she hung up, she looked at me, eyes wide with fear and betrayal. Her lips trembled, but she said nothing. She knew she was caught and there was no way out. I finally stood up and crossed the room slowly, letting her see the cold resolve in my eyes. "Did you think you could do this and get away with it?" I asked, voice low and steady. Cold fury simmered beneath my words. "All those lies, the cheating, the secrets, you thought you were invincible." She sank onto the couch, clutching her purse like a lifeline. "Please just listen," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "I was stupid. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I was scared. You have to believe me." I didn't believe her, not anymore. The evidence was too overwhelming. Her trembling hands betrayed her and her voice cracked under the weight of guilt. I felt a strange mixture of satisfaction and disgust. She'd betrayed me, lied to my face, and thought she could manipulate her way out of it. "I don't want to hear any more lies," I said sharply. "You crossed a line, and now I'm going to end this the way I should have from the start." I reached into my pocket and pulled out the necklace I'd left her, the fake one, the one I'd replaced. I held it out to her. "Here, your precious thing. You can keep pretending everything's okay, but I hope this reminds you of what you lost, my trust, my respect, my marriage." Her tears intensified, but I was already done. I turned away and walked toward the door, my mind made up. The house, once full of love and hope, was now a graveyard of betrayal. I'd played my part perfectly: distrust, discovery, planning, and finally justice. Before I stepped out, I looked back at her. "You're done here," I said coldly. "I want the keys to your car. Pack your stuff and don't come back until I say so." Her face crumpled, but she nodded silently. What was there left to say? As she grabbed her purse, I handed her the fake necklace. "Take this," I said. "It's a reminder, just like I'll remember forever what you did to us." She looked at it, then back at me, her tears falling freely now. "I'm sorry," she whispered, voice hoarse. "I never wanted to hurt you." I didn't respond. I simply turned and opened the door, walking out into the cold evening air. The weight of everything I'd done pressed down on me: revenge, justice, heartbreak. But I knew I had finally taken control of the story. I left her standing there, broken and crying, clutching the fake necklace. As I drove away, I felt an odd calm settle over me. I'd sealed her fate, and I'd move on stronger, wiser. The pain would fade, but the lesson would stay. Trust is a fragile thing, and betrayal can cut deep. But in the end, sometimes revenge is the only way to reclaim what's yours.